Let's talk a little bit today about a video I wasn't sure if I was going to make or not. So I made this hat back at the 4th of July for a 4th of July party I was going to, and I kind of was on the fence about whether or not I wanted to share it. Not because it's too far out there, but just a couple of reasons. Obviously it's a product for adults. I don't want that to come out weird. That's not how I meant that. So it's an adult beverage, and my channel is, I always mark it as not for children, so I am taking that into account while posting this. The other thing is, I read a lot about this type of item, and because it's a trademarked item, it can cause you a lot of problems if you try to make these and sell them, because companies don't want you profiting off of their trademarked property. So I will put out like a full disclaimer on this that probably don't make these for craft shows, or if your friends are like, oh, you should make these, put them on eBay, it probably will get taken down, or you could end up in a problem with the company that you make it from. But this was solely for my own fun, and I did not sell it. I didn't make any for anybody else, but I did kind of think with Christmas coming up, this would be a great kind of gag gift idea, or if you just have someone kind of difficult to shop for, it'd be great to put like a gift card with it, or you could put it with, a six-pack. The third disclaimer I want to put on this is that it is sharp. So, if you don't have a lot of hand strength, or if you don't have the appropriate tools for this, especially gloves, 100% you need to wear gloves. And I would also really, really encourage you to wear like protective eyewear as well. So that's the thing. I certainly don't want you to get hurt making this. So something to think about. Definitely not a project for anyone young, for multiple reasons. Even though you could definitely do like soda cans, you could do water cans, you can do any aluminum can. It does not have to be this one. I just wanted more of like a vintage look, and it turns out my husband had this in the fridge, so it worked out great. I looked and tried to find some information. I had seen a link on maybe Instagram about some vintage ad, but I couldn't find any information. There is a channel called Bohemian Mermaid, and I will link hers below. Her video is more like vlog style, and there wasn't like a ton of instructions. It was just kind of watching her make one. And I do believe she had a blog post, so I will link both of those things if I can find the blog post. And I know I do also have her video. I have a playlist on my channel called crochet tutorials I've tried and loved. None of them are mine. They're all other people's, but when I do try one and it works out great, I go ahead and I put it in there. So you can always check out that playlist too. Yeah, there was not a lot of information online about this, so some of it is guesstimation, and I would say this is a project for an intermediate crocheter. The stitches are very, very simple. It was double crochets and single crochets and some slip stitches. That's not what's hard. It has more to do with the fact that you have to improvise. Like, you have to improvise through most of this hat. So that's why I'm saying it's more intermediate, because you have to kind of decide how things are fitting. All the cans are like different size because you want to cut it out based on how big the logo is. So even though 12-ounce cans are all 12-ounce cans, the logo size is different. And how much of the logo do you want on there? These happen to have a super flippin' wide logo. So I only have 1, 2, 3 cans is all it took for mine, where in the video I saw from Bohemian Mermaid, I believe she had 5 cans because her logos were, like half this size. So something else you want to think about. Yeah, a lot of improvisation. You will also need something sharp to cut your cans, and what you're more comfortable with and that you can use safely. I did enlist my husband to help with this project, so he went ahead and cut them all for me. He used a box cutter. So, you know, if you had like some sharp shears, anything like that, they're really actually, aluminum cans are super thin. Like they're not hard to cut through at all. So it was just more about trying to get them as smooth as possible. So you'll need that. And then the other thing you need to make these holes is I used a metal paper punch. So the one I had was kind of old. It was definitely all metal. There weren't any plastic parts in it, but it punched through it like, you know, like maybe it was a couple of sheets of paper. It was not bad at all. And then I have a pair of kitchen shears that I just, like not sewing, not fabric scissors, but shears that I use to like cut open packages and stuff like that, and I don't really care about the sharpness. I did use those to round off the edges on all of the cans, because when you cut them out, they're going to be squares or rectangles, and you do not want that sharp edge on there when you're crocheting it, because I think it would end up poking you, and also it would just be a danger while you're crocheting. So limited amount of supplies. Another tip is I did wash the cans prior to cutting them apart. I just thought that was easier. You know, I just dunked them in soapy water and kind of shook them up. So that was pretty easy. And I don't think I have really any other tips before I will turn the camera around and give you a little bit closer look and kind of just explain a little bit more about what I did. I used, I believe, two or three skeins, those little cotton skeins that I had gotten from Hobby Lobby during the annual clearance sale. I will go ahead and I will link that video right up here if you haven't seen that. This was weathered teal, and I cannot remember off the top of my head what this one was. I think it was called like weathered tan or weathered sand, something like that. These were both discontinued colors, so you can't get them, but you might have them in your stash if you went to that sale too. But I just wanted to go, like, this can is gold and yellow and blue, and so this worked good enough for me. Like, I had them on hand, I didn't have to buy anything, and I thought it coordinated well enough. You definitely would not have to use more than one color. You could definitely just use one to make it a little more simple, which, you know, depending on your can, I would definitely, you know, do less colors. This one is kind of on the borderline of what I'm comfortable wearing in public. And I wore this to a 4th of July party that only my friends were at. So I don't think I'm probably gutsy enough to like wear it out on the town. So kudos if you are. Anyway, let's turn this around. So here is my hat from the front view right here. And like I said, these cans were, the logos were about twice as wide as some of the others. So, you know, it's something where I used 3. I went around with the clusters, so I have 3 double crochets at each hole. And I tried to just make mine fairly symmetrical, so I did, I started with punching in every corner of it, and then in the middle, and then I just did 2 in between. And so there is less over here on the side. So again, it's kind of just estimating. I didn't use a ruler. I eyeballed it because, you know, it's not really that precise of a project anyway. So I didn't want to get out a ruler and stress myself out unnecessarily. So again, you know, I can't tell you exactly how many stitches go anywhere in this because it's going to vary based on your head size and the logos. So, like I said, I started with these panels, and I went ahead and did, after my double crochet, I went ahead and just did a single crochet in the tan, and I made all 3 of my panels first. So, judging by my head size, you probably heard me say 100 times, my head's big. I did end up on this one panel having to add, I did add like an extra row of blue on it. I mean, you can see where that's smaller, where I did the seam, and I did an extra row of blue here. I don't think it's terribly noticeable, but it just gave me a little room to be a little more comfortable with how it fit. So once I had the circumference of the hat put together, I went ahead and went up to do the top. So this is in a separate piece. It does kind of sink down a little bit, and when I'm wearing it, it does not. It fits fine. I feel like it has like a weird top hat shape right now. So it is possible that I could have gotten by with like one row less, is what I'm assuming that means. But I started out just with a magic ring here, and I just did increase rows, and I kept going out until I felt that it reached the perimeter of the sides. So again, I think I probably could have quit with what, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 7. I probably could have stopped with 6. And you know, if you have a smaller hat or smaller head, you know, maybe even 5. And of course, it also depends on your yarn and your tension. I went with cotton yarn because it was the 4th of July and I wanted my hat to be fairly breathable. These aluminum spots are not breathable, and when one is on your forehead, it is a little bit on the sweaty side, so just a heads up on that one. But once you get the top done, then you can go ahead and do your brim. And let's see here, I did what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe I did 7 rows there. And again, that is more just personal preference. I wanted it to be just enough that you could tell it was more of a bucket hat style, and I didn't want it to be real floppy that I couldn't see. Again, really easy stitches. This did whip up for me in a few hours. You know, I think it took me like 2 days. But, you know, I maybe only spent about 3 hours on it or so. I'm not really sure. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. If you were a teenager in the 70s, there is a good chance that you might have had one of these. I was a teenager in the 90s, and I don't know, it was like a time when the 90s kind of revisited the 70s. There was that movie Dazed and Confused, and bell bottoms came out again, and like bodysuits. Like, it was just kind of like the 90s were a fun time to be a teenager. So I think being born in the 70s and then kind of revisiting that in my teenage years, I just have like a soft spot for the 70s in my heart. So I do love this hat. I am glad I made it. Please keep in mind the disclaimers at the front of this video, because I don't want you hurting yourself, and I don't want someone it's not appropriate for, you know, having it, and I certainly don't want you getting in trouble for, you know, using a trademarked logo. Would you guys wear this? Let me know in the comments. I know this is kind of silly, and I'm probably going to be actually, like, I'm not really ever nervous about posting videos, but since this is a little outside of my comfort zone, it is kind of making me a little bit nervous to post this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and log this hat under the finished objects playlist that I have. But like I said, I think it would be like a great little Christmas gift if you have someone fun that you need a gift for and you do not want to spend a ton of time or money on it. I think this would be great. I will go ahead and link right up here my playlist for finished objects, where if you're wanting to see any others, I have a lot of like links to quick projects because I do a lot of that on this channel. I appreciate you stopping and talking yarn with me, guys.